What is lust? Lust is a fire that burns hot and fast, consuming reason in its blaze. Have you ever felt a desire so intense that it blurs the lines between passion and obsession? This overwhelming force ignites the senses and clouds the mind, driving us to chase what we crave most. This month, we will explore the concept of lust, its recognition, and strategies of overcoming it. Welcome to a series I like to call The Burning Desire of the Flesh, part one of seven of the seven deadly sins.
You try the pleasures of this world, but still there's something missing. Cause when you close your eyes at night, you can feel your heart still searching. I know you're tired of being let down, so you look for love in all the wrong places. So search no more, cause it's the life of Christ your soul's been missing.
You must learn the lowest birth.
And it came to pass in a time of antiquity, in an era before the realms of man and creature were set asunder, that the land was defended by the holy knights, who did wield a great and wondrous power. Great was their fear, and reverence they did command. Yet from their own ranks a treacherous company arose, who did betray the kingdom, and became sworn enemies to all who held the holy charge. They were known throughout the land, and their infamy did spread as the seven deadly sins.
What's good, peeps? With all things shenanigans, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year, I am your host that does the most, Maestro DJ Jones. Welcome back to the Maestro Show, the only show where you may not be understood, but you are never underestimated. Also, welcome to part one of my Bible series, The Seven Deadly Sins. As I said earlier last month, we're going to explore each sin in its entirety. So I hope you are ready, because now we're doing lust. I call this part the burning desire of the flesh. Okay, so get your notebooks out, get ready to take notes, because we're about to dive deep into lust. Before we get into it, what is lust? It's a potent psychological and biological drive. It's characterized by an intense longing or unbridled desire. While often linked to sexual context, it can also encompass a lust for power, a lust for money, or even a lust for life. Now, that is the textbook definition. But what does it actually mean? Let's dive in. Lust transcends mere interest. It's an overwhelming craving that frequently seeks immediate gratification. Unlike love, which prioritizes the well-being of another, lust primarily centers on fulfilling one's own desires. In interpersonal relationships, lust can lead individuals to perceive another person as a mere means to an end, an object of pleasure, rather than a whole person. In other words, you see that person as just a piece of meat, or just something you use to, quote unquote, get your rocks off, instead of seeing them as a person that has feelings. Well, that's the textbook definition and breaking it down to what it actually means. But let's go deeper. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Matthew chapter 5, verse 28. The spirit of lust extends beyond physical acts. Lust begins privately before it manifests publicly. Just because you have not acted upon the physical act does not mean that you have not committed adultery. Adultery starts within the borders of your heart. Adultery goes beyond physical connectivity of sex, no matter if it's adultery or no matter whether it's fornication. Lust starts in the heart. Let's break it down what adultery does to you. Adultery can be committed emotionally. Adultery can be committed spiritually. Adultery can be committed mentally. Let's take adultery out and put fornication for those of you who are single. Fornication can be committed emotionally. Fornication can be committed spiritually. And fornication can be committed mentally. Whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're single and you're looking at a married woman, or you're single looking at a single woman, or a guy, or whomever it is. It can be committed emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. You can become emotionally tied to someone who has caught your heart. Your soul can be tied to someone who has intellectually stimulated and grasped a hold of your heart. You guys ever heard of soul ties? Let me go ahead and give you a brief explanation of that real quick for those of you who haven't. Have you ever had sex with a person and then out of nowhere you started to feel depressed, or you started to feel angry a lot, or whatever emotion that they had going on? You felt crazy, you wondering where it came from? Ever thought about the person that you had sex with? Whatever they're emotionally feeling, or emotionally what they're going through at that time that you had sex with them, that now becomes a part of you. Whatever demon or spirit that they're dealing with, that now is a part of you. So ask yourself this: who has your heart? What do you crave? Who do you crave? What void are you trying to fill? Who has caught your heart? Who has caught your ear? Choose to keep your hands clean and pure. Choose to focus on Christ. Proverbs chapter 6:27 says, "Can a man take fire in his bosom and clothes not be burned?" Do you think that you can just do lust and then it's just be okay? Like, oh, I'm single, I'm not married, it'd be all right, just sex. No. Sex is not just sex. A kiss is not just a kiss. Lust lures. Lust burns. Lust is deceitful. Lust is never satisfied. Lust is expensive and will cost you everything. And Proverbs chapter 6:26 puts it this way: "For a prostitute will bring you poverty, but sleeping with another man's wife will cost you your life." So, for those of you who are single, and you see that married individual, or you got money to pay for whatever little streetwalkers on the street, ask yourself this: is it worth losing my life? Is sleeping with that woman or sleeping with that man worth losing everything? Well, I'm not done here. Let's go deep. Let's go to the Bible with this. There are a lot of examples in the Bible about lust, but here I have at least 7 most noticeable. So let's get started. You probably already know about this, right? Those of you who don't know, this is one of the most famous examples of lust, right? King David saw Bathsheba bathing. Back then they didn't really have windows, to cover yourself back then. So he just looked over a balcony and he saw her bathing. The girl just had her own business, right? Despite her being married to a guy named Uriah, lusted after her, right? This led to adultery, and even David orchestrating Uriah's death to cover up his sin. This is how he did it. He sent Uriah to the front lines, in the army, to be killed. But what I like about this story, though, is that somebody came to David and said, hey, gave him a parable, right? And David was like, oh, that man should be burned. That man should be hung. He should be killed. The priest was like, oh, really? Because that same man is you. Once David discovered that, he got on his knees and said, God, created me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. David immediately got back on track when somebody came to be like, hey, yo, you need to check this out. Now, you all know who Samson is. One of the strongest men in the Bible, right? Yeah. But he met a girl named Delilah. Here's how it happened. Samson's repeated attraction to foreign women, particularly Delilah, demonstrated a lack of self-control. His lust for her eventually led to his betrayal, capture, and death. Y'all know how it happened, right? Like Delilah, while he was sleeping, like cut off his hair, which that was like the source of his strength. That's what God gave him. Like God gave him like the hair so he could be strong. Because of that, he died. So here already we see, death. At least David corrected himself after he sinned, right? But here Samson, he just died. King David's son, Amon, developed an obsessive lust for his half-sister Tamar. Refusing to control his desire, he eventually raped her, which led to a cycle of violence and his own murder by his brother, Absalom. His own brother killed him for lusting after his own stepsister. Despite his wisdom, King Solomon's lust for many foreign women led him to take hundreds of wives and concubines. This one great wise king, right? So wise, ended up giving in to lust and having so many different wives and concubines. Here's what happened. These relationships eventually turned his heart away from God towards idolatry. So here we have a spiritual death. It was physical death. The second one and the third one was physical death. The fourth one here, Solomon, was spiritual death. Completely cut off from God. This is a different type of lust here. In the wilderness, the mixed multitude fell into a strong craving for meat instead of the manna that God provided. This lust for physical satisfaction resulted into a divine plague. Literally, God gave you something to survive off of, and that wasn't enough. So I'm gonna ask that question again. Is it worth it? Is it really worth losing yourself for self-gratification? The fall in Genesis 3 is often called the first instance of lust, which is called lust of the eye. We'll get into that later. But when Eve saw that forbidden fruit was pleasing to the eye and desirable to make one wise. So here we have something that's pleasing to the eye and something that is desired. That desire and stuff that pleased Eve, she ate it. And what happened? Adam ate it too. Then what happened? God found out. Then what happened? They got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And here we are today. After the victory at Jericho, Achan's lust for forbidden riches, which is again lust of the eye, led him to steal silver and gold, bringing judgment upon himself and Israel. So because he stole something, because he couldn't keep his hands in his pocket to have self-control, he stole something, which led God to judge upon him and the rest of Israel, because he did not check himself. Now you can read these in detail when you go to the Bible and everything, but this is just like 7 of like the baseline notable things about lust, right? Already we have people getting cut off from God because of this. And we also have people dying because of this. Eve and Adam got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because of it. We have people getting killed. They couldn't control themselves. You see what happens when you don't get control of this? Because it started off as an internal thought, and then it lusted out. It lashed out into sin. Before I let you go, I want to talk about 3 biblical perspectives. The 3 types of lust: adultery of the heart, and the outcome of sin, of lust, the outcome of lust. 3 types of lust. In 1 John chapter 2, verse 16, categorizes worldly desires into the lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, and the pride of life. So lust of the eye, as I mentioned earlier, is something that's pleasing to the eye. You see it and it looks pleasing. It looks appetizing. So you want that. Lust of the flesh is you feel is like you want the desire of whatever it is. It's desirable and it makes you feel good, makes you feel some kind of way. That's lust of the flesh. And the pride of life is literally you feeling entitled to it. I feel entitled to have it. I've been doing this, doing that. I deserve it. You ever been in that situation? Or you know somebody who's been in that situation? I've been doing good. I go to work. I pay the bills. I deserve to go to the strip club. Or I deserve to have a little fun. But is going to the strip club and having too much fun worth it? Adultery of the heart. We've already talked about this, but I'm going to talk about it again. In Matthew chapter 5:28, Jesus teaches that even looking at a person with lustful intent is equivalent to committing adultery in the heart. All you got to do is look at them in a lustful way. And it's adultery. And last, but simply not least, the outcome of lust. Temptation leads to desire. Desire turns into sin. Eventually, it leads to spiritual death. You're going to always be tempted with something, but it's what you do with that temptation, right? In the Bible, we saw so many examples of how the temptation was there. They saw a beautiful woman. It's always them seeing something, right? So I'm going to ask you one more time. I'm probably going to ask you again, but hopefully this is the last time I'm going to ask you. Is it worth it? In conclusion, and I promise you I'm done. Lust, characterized by an intense longing or unbridled desire, originates in the heart and leads to temptation. Temptation, in turn, fuels desire, which ultimately results in sin and spiritual death. There are numerous biblical examples to illustrate how lust can lead to physical and spiritual death. It is important to note that lust typically begins privately, or it manifests publicly. If left unchecked, lust can devastate your life, soul, mind, and relationships. I want to read this verse to you from 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires, which wages war against your soul. Every time you deal with lust and you're trying to, get back right with God, there's always a war between your flesh and the spirit. If you do not check this sin, it will lead to either spiritual death or physical death. So I'm gonna ask you one last time. Is it worth it? And I promise you, I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to me too. Because even though I've never looked at another man's wife that way, I've dealt with lust on a personal level myself. But I will get into later what I've dealt with personally and how I can help you and ways to help you. Okay. But for right now, you have to wait until the next video where we get into how to identify lust. So stay tuned for part 2 of the burning desire of the flesh, which is part 1 of my 7-month-long series of the 7 deadly sins. I'm Maestro DJ, and we'll see you next time.